Kinsey, thank you so much for your time. There are calls. We'll start with this deportation stuff because this just seems silly to me. People want to deport him from the US because on his visa application, they suspect he wasn't entirely honest because, of course, in his memoir, he spoke openly about his drug use, but you're supposed to declare that when you want to live in America, and he presumably didn't. The Heritage Foundation is behind these calls. What do you make of this entire story?
I mean, Rita, this is a little crazy and exciting if you think about it. The idea that Prince Harry could have lied on his visa application, and if so, there are calls for him to be deported. He openly discusses drug use in his book, and don't forget that pay-to-play interview he recently did. He talks about continuing that drug use, some of that drug use being illegal. And so the Heritage Foundation is saying, as taxpayers, we deserve to know how he became, a citizen of this country. Is it through his wife? Does he have the special privilege visa? And if he received special privileges, is that illegal? And does America want to continue to house somebody that's basically endorsing drug use? I mean, let's be honest, the odds of him getting deported over this, I think, are really small. But I do think it might be teaching him a lesson. He puts his foot in his mouth constantly. And at what point is he going to learn that maybe he needs to be a little more responsible with his words?
Well, he's pretty much gone through life without having to face too many consequences for his shenanigans. So I'm not surprised. I don't think he's a citizen yet of the US, but perhaps down the track that will be a road he will take. Now, another revelation in Harry's memoir was his claim to have killed 25 Afghan fighters. Now, a Russian artist who was offended by the claim is planning to project a sculpture featuring blood donated by Afghans onto St Paul's Cathedral, along with footage of the prince. Now, when the memoir first came out, a lot of people were in disbelief that Harry had included this particular detail in the book. But I've got to say, Kinsey, perhaps a gruesome art installation is much better than the threats of violence that followed the body count claims when the book first came out.
I agree with you. I do imagine, however, that this is really embarrassing for King Charles. He'd like for the focus to be, specifically in that part of the world, he'd like for the focus to be his coronation, which is coming up in the next month. But you're right. Harry actually is in town at the moment, and he's constantly talking about his privacy and security concerns. Again, we're talking consequences here. I think that this is one of those instances where he might sit back and go, maybe this is a piece of information I shouldn't have shared.
Well, you would hope so, because so many of the people who were highly critical when that detail first became known were serving an ex-serviceman. So he's upset his own there, and you would hope that he's actually reflected on that. Now, talking about royals embarrassing King Charles, Prince Andrew wants to write a tell-all autobiography. This sounds like the worst idea ever. The Sun's reporting 8 in 10 people think it is a terrible idea. Is this going to happen? Surely, I don't know what yes people he has around him who are telling him this is a good idea, but this can only end in tears.
Well, first of all, Rita, I wanted to ask you, would you read this book? I don't know if I would. I would be curious to know if this is something you would actually pick up and read.
No, thank you. No. I wouldn't even listen to the audio book, because I did enjoy parts of Harry's audio book because they were just so ridiculous. It was unintentional comedy, but I don't think Prince Andrew is going to bring me any laughs.
But here, Rita, I wonder if perhaps this is a manipulative tactic, perhaps because I've heard that Andrew and Fergie are leaking stories. That is what I've heard, in the royal space. So could Andrew have leaked this story to manipulate King Charles because he could potentially be kicked out of the home? He'd rather stay in Royal Lodge, or, they're in need of money. So is this Andrew's way of leaking this story, making King Charles a little nervous so that he can, he has the upper hand?